first off, I would like to start with the near-death experience itself. I'm a very technical guy, so I would say nuts and bolts, but I'll go a step further. It's close interfere, faster, and color. So those things work so tightly together that there's absolutely no gaps there. So I try to see things in a very dry way, but not quite so dry. So in 2011, I was working inside a fuel tank and I became unconscious. And there was a little voice inside my head saying to me, you're that guy now. Because before entering a confined space, you go through a certain amount of training, and basically it says to you, don't be that guy. And their voice like looking at me like, you're that guy now. And then, I don't want to be that guy. So I had to really focus and become conscious again. And as soon as I did that, I blacked out again. And that voice came back, you're still that guy. And no. So I woke up again. I got out of the tank on my own and I said to the folks, I'm not going back in. Which I didn't, like till now. I've been working with airplanes for 26, 27 years, and I'm still here. So what happened that day was that I showed up in a little van. So I was out. I went back home and I went to bed. I was living in Tennessee and went to bed because that's how it goes. We're working 12 hours a day, which is not great. So I finally relaxed, but I didn't wake up as I should have. So I was unconscious again. The memory that night or that morning or that day was that I showed up in a little van in a place that I didn't know, and there were people there with me, and they all left the van, so I obviously followed them. I didn't know what it was. And I saw this beautiful theater that looked like the one theater that I really liked from my hometown. And then I walked right in it. It's just so beautiful. And as soon as I walked into that theater, I realized that it had no ceiling, no roof, but it was just a big tree canopy and in bright daylight. And that doesn't ring a bell anywhere, really. So I thought, this is really weird. And I kept walking, and then suddenly I saw my deceased great aunt. She was the one who raised me and pretty much raised me, and she passed away in 2006. And when I saw her, I kind of struck a chord, and wow, I think I'm dead. And I looked at her, I smiled, and she looked at me, smiled, and then I nodded. I didn't say anything, she didn't say anything. And I thought in my head, well, how did that happen? And I tried to backtrack my paces and my steps. It was a fuel tank. Dang it. It got to me. And in a nutshell, I accepted the situation. I was dead. And I saw, let's see what's around. So I left the theater, and there was this beautiful street, and the sun was different. There was a kind of a orange, purple sky with the music or sound in the air, kind of a vibration, like Lena said. And it's so tangible, like you can almost touch it. You can feel it in yourself. And then I thought, wow, this is really cool. And then I saw these trees in the distance. So I walked there. There were people there, of course, coming and going. And but I didn't mind them, and they didn't mind me either. So I saw this beautiful mango, like a golden mango, just glistening on top of one tree. And then I said to myself, that's my mango. I grew up in Belém, Brazil, It's kind of equator line in the edge of the Amazon, and there's lots of mangoes there. So I grew up climbing those trees and getting all the mangoes I wanted. But as an adult, I said, I'm going to take the adult route this time. I'm going to just sit here and I kind of gauge where it's going to fall because it's ripe. It's going to fall any second now. And just wait. So at the foot of the tree, I sat, looking at the mango, and I thinking any second now. And I looked around, people coming and going, back to the mango, back to the people. Suddenly I saw this guy looking at me, and he was smiling. And I nodded, acknowledged his smile, and looked at the mango again. And so this went on for a little while, not sure how long. And then finally, I decided to get up and talk to him because he just didn't stop looking at me. So I got up and went there, and I asked him, hey, can I stay here? And then he said to me, no, you're going to go back now. But the way that he said it was so not dismissive, not rejective, not anything. It was so nice and welcoming that I said, yes, I'll go back now. And then he reached out and touched me in the chest, and I felt this jolt, a kind of an electric jolt. And then I woke up and I looked at my clock. I couldn't believe it. I just got into the shock mode. I lost a day. And there were missed calls on my phone and people looking for me, and you never showed up to work. Like, wow. So I called a bunch of people, and I was sleeping. And it's really hard to explain that you slept for a day. Nobody does that, I know. But I woke up. There was nobody to check on me, so by myself. And I remember that face, and I remember that you're gonna go back. And I said yes. I never fought, never said no. And there I was again. And work went on. And a few days later, I was sleeping, and I felt a presence in the bedroom. And I turned to see what it was. And there was this dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. And I turned, like now in slow motion, to the door. But as soon as I turned, I felt this punch on my back. Felt like electricity, like being tased. And I was paralyzed. And then I fought for a moment. And then I broke out of it. There was no figure in the bedroom. I was moving again. It was 2 a.m. Wow, that was just a crazy dream. And then a few days later, it happened again. So again, sleeping, and I felt a presence in the bedroom again. And then I'm going to wake up to see what's going on. Only to realize that I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed. And then I felt these whispers around me, from one side to the other, to the top of my head. Oh, there's something going on, and I'm paralyzed. I couldn't open my eyes. And then I felt these arms sliding slowly underneath my knees and neck, and effortlessly I was off of the bed, where there was a sensation. And then I was beginning to freak out. Couldn't move, couldn't see. And then suddenly I felt this plastic, kind of a shrink wrap plastic, coming down really hard on my face. And then I thought, now I can breathe. So I think I'm done. But as soon as it came down, it came back up. And now here comes the crazy part, that I felt like I was being pulled out of my body, and I was really being separated from my body. And I fought, but there's nowhere to hold on to. There's absolutely nowhere to hold on to. And I just fought as hard as I could, and then I gave up. I blacked out. And I woke up next day looking at me in the mirror and like, what's going on? And there's something really wrong here. Long story short, I went to the doctor and there's nothing wrong with you. And she goes see a sleep doctor. And then I went to the sleep doctor and I told him the story, and then he looked at me with that face. And then I said to myself, it's better to deal with it myself. So life went on that way. Every night there was something, and I was literally full of fear. But there was one night that I was just fed up. I gathered all that strength, all that frustration, all that pain. When I felt the paralysis coming, there was a big no. But a no with so focused, so full of strength that the paralysis stopped and turned away and then left. And then I realized I have control now. Like flying an airplane, I have controls. I'm a pilot in command. I started to play with it. I know I can do it myself. So I practiced for a while. It's not easy. And then one day I kind of mastered it. And I know what's happening now. And after that, I lost my fear. I began leaving my body at night. And when I did that fearlessly, another door opened. And I realized there was more to explore. And beings are welcome. Hey, you wanna go for a ride? Sure, I can do that. And I was seeing things, things that will come, things that passed, things so far in time that I can't even explain. So one of them was what led me to the IANDS conference in Salt Lake. So I had this dream that I showed up in this place. And I knew it wasn't a dream because of my past experience. And I showed up in the morning, just before the sunrise, and it was like a commercial center with a big mall. And I looked around, and I don't recognize this place. And this white truck pulling a white trailer came and almost hit me. And no headlights on in the middle of the night. That's weird. Okay, this is too weird. I'm just gonna go now. And I flew up in the air. That was so nice. And now the sun was rising in the horizon, and I saw this big nest on top of a tree. And I flew close to the nest, and there was a beautiful eagle and a seagull and two baby eagles. And I sat cross-legged in the air like a yogi. And I thought to the seagull, that might not be the best place for you to hang out, my friend. They like eating other birds too. But there was peace in the nest. And suddenly I saw this airplane flying in the air. And then supersonic. And I grew up around airplanes, so I know what I see. And I saw this F-35 flying supersonic. And when I chased it just for fun. But then I saw this siren coming from the town. And when I turned to the town, there was just fire expanding, just a huge explosion. And without fear, I asked, when did this happen? And this piece of paper came with debris and hit my leg. And I grabbed the paper and I read September 15, 2046. And then the fire just hit me. Oof. And then I woke up immediately. And I took note of the date, and I couldn't figure out what that place was. But then little by little, the bald eagle is a symbol for this country. And then after a little research and a few days later, I realized that the seagull is also a state symbol, and it's a state symbol for Utah. So it's the seagull that dwells in the eagle's nest. And I thought that was so beautiful. And then I looked at pictures, and that was a place. I had never been to Utah before, Salt Lake, or never been to that part of the country. And a few years later, I actually went there. I rented a motorcycle and went there, and that was a place. But it was the wrong year. I mean, the wrong month, because the sun rises in a different angle in the summer compared to the fall. So I thought, well, maybe this will really happen. And I was worried about many things. And wow, not here in this country. But history has proven that we had had many conflicts before. And we should not be comfortable enough to think that we won't have any further down the road. And then I showed up again in a different year. And this was like way beyond my understanding. I showed up and I asked an old lady, what day is it? And she said, Monday. What year? 2189. And then wow, 2189. And I looked around and malls and people smiling, coming and going, and computers were different and things were different. And then, well, even though we go through challenges in life and ahead of us, we'll get back to normal, or a new, different normal. So I think kindness and compassion and love to each other will help us go through anything and kind of get together in the end. So there were many other things that happened. But seeing things to come is also in the Bible. And even though I don't take a religious approach to things, I know that there are many things there that will help, not only from the Bible, but from other other religions themselves. If you just take a moment to understand everything. And that comes with, I don't know, maybe breath control. When you sit in meditation and you can calm yourself and maybe drop the fear a little bit, you can actually have an experience.